Portion of this video is sponsored by Anchor. So phones these days, I think it's fair to say, are like a dime a dozen. They're all some form of good. They're all a rectangle, and they all generally give you the same experience. Google, I think, is trying something like a slight bit different. Instead of making straight up clone of every other phone, and this is the first time ever really, they are trying to take the Pixel line in a very different direction. And they're focusing on what Google does best, AI, cameras, and software. And that is no different with the new Pixel 6a. But now that the 6a is here, I think it's making it hard to decide which Pixel to actually buy. So I'm not gonna compare the 6a to the 6. For the extra $150, I don't think you are getting $150 worth of more phone. They are that close. So if you're trying to decide between those two, just go with the 6a and make it easier. You're getting a very similar experience, saving time, saving money, and I think you'll be pretty happy. Where it gets interesting when you compare the 6a to the Pixel 6 Pro. Now up front, I get this might seem like a strange comparison. One is a premium $1,000 device, the other is mid-range. The more you compare these phones, I think the more surprising the results are. In the middle of 2022, the phone to buy might surprise you. But no matter what you said about the Pixel, it has been known for that camera system. And with the 6 Pro, Google really stepped it up with finally all new hardware. You got high resolutions, more zoomies, ultra wide, and sort of that same amazing Pixel processing, and now it just improved. It's great. I've talked about it in the past, made a lot of videos on it. If you like the way a Pixel takes photos, you will love what you get from the 6 Pro. 6a, on the other hand, it's got some different hardware than the Pro. It's much more similar to what we had with the Pixel 5, with two 12-megapixel sensors, one for the main, one's ultra-wide, still using the same processing on both. So, can you tell a difference? I'm gonna put some samples up here. Is A or B the 6a? So be honest. Look at highlights, look at lowlights. You can see, detail in this photo here. Just see if you can guess which one is which. All right, so if you lock in your guesses, B was a Pixel 6a. Take that quality discussion out. You do get the same great software on both of these phones, and I am still bonkers impressed with Magic Eraser. It's something that was kind of relegated to Photoshop really a few months ago. But on this $450 phone, I can delete things from my photos with a swipe of a finger. I also really dig the camouflage feature that comes with the 6a. Actually change the color of something that's distracting in the background. Tensor chip inside is putting in the work. That's one of my favorite things about both these phones. To me, what it comes down to with these camera systems is how much you want to telephoto. Now the zoom on the 6 Pro is, I think, amongst the best features of the camera setup. The photos are sharp and detailed because it lets you take really unique photos that I think to my eye look a bit more professional, and also the look is sort of closely similar at least to a dedicated camera. Clearly the wide angle is sort of more popular for a lot of people. So it comes down to what's more important to you. I love zoom, I use them all the time, but I've heard in the comments and I've seen discussions, I tend to be in the minority there. From a software standpoint and a quality standpoint, I think it'd be hard pressed to say that either of these cameras will give you a bad result. I think that's a testament to how much work Google has put into these things. These phones, if you just look quickly, I think these phones look identical, and I think in the best way possible. Google took a really bold stance to the design philosophy of the Pixel, and I think it paid off big time. So the camera bar with the colorful back is instantly recognizable now as a Pixel. And whether you spend the lower amount of $450 or the highest amount in the $1,000, you are getting a device that looks and feels premium. Now, not to say that there aren't any differences between the two. The biggest difference is the screen, and this might be a deal breaker for some. 6a is rocking a 6.1-inch FHD Plus 60 Hz OLED display, while 6 Pro, it's bigger, 6.7 inches, QHD, and 120 Hz. Now, I've been open about it. Can't help it. It's who I am as a person. I'm a display snob, and I've been looking at 120 Hz displays for the past few years. So to me, the Pro's display is leaps and bounds better than the 6a. This is one place where the hardware feels noticeably worse than the Pro counterpart. And to me, having a better screen is something I really care about. What is much less important to me though is the material of the phone. The 6 Pro's got a glossy glass back, and while it looks great, fingerprint and magnet, it's also kind of slippery to hold. The composite back on the 6A, to my hand, feels more ergonomic and less slippery. Even though it's technically less premium, I am 100% okay with it. I actually kind of like or prefer it. The back feels like glass to me, even though it's not. It's a strange plastic material. I really like the way the 6A feels. The sides are metal, flat screen. Everything at how this phone feels in the hand does not scream mid-range at all. So no matter what phone you get, whether you go 6A, 6 Pro, or decide to go iPhone or anything different, at some points, no matter how good battery life is, you're gonna have to charge your phones. And Anker is, I think, the premier name in charging accessories. And they are back with the latest edition of their gallium nitride chargers, GaN Prime. These things are getting so fast, they could pretty much charge an electric car at this point. They are so powerful. And it's got the Anker tech that you probably already know. Power IQ 4.0, Active Shield 2.0, doing things like making sure they're compatible with everything, super fast, intelligent, and they're gonna do real-time protection so they're safe for your devices. So first, like I said, insanely fast charging, but they come with a little accessory with suction cups on it. Actually, they will stick to the little cover on your outlet, keeping them flush. They look good, they feel premium, and they charge insanely fast. And not just one outlet, some of these things have 3. You've got USB Type-C, USB Type-A, whatever you want to charge or plug in, they've got you covered. Reliable, quick, and relatively affordable. Check them out. If you want to learn more, link to them down below. But the design, I think, is there for you to experience. What I think Google is most, let's say, proud of with these phones, Material U. And the software is what I always appreciate the Pixel line kind of for the most. And sure, there are millions of Android devices out there, but the software experience of Google is just so top-notch, and that is no different with the 6A. And I guess you'd expect Google's own software and their take on their own software to be amongst the best. So almost everything we've talked about with these phones is thanks to one thing, the Tensor chip. I've been going on about this chip for almost a year since it's released, and it has aged very well in that time. It's fast, powerful, most importantly, it stays out of its own way. And I don't notice a processor, and that's exactly what I want. I want to pick up a phone and have a seamless, quick experience, and I think Google really accomplishes that perfectly with its Tensor chips. Now, not to say it's had a perfect run. 6 Pro has been plagued with software bugs since its release, but one in particular with the fingerprint reader. So this thing is just slow. When Google announced that in-screen fingerprint reader was coming to the 6A as well, I was interested to see if there would be any changes. Now, I know some of you have had incredible experiences with the 6 Pro fingerprint reader. Maybe you had to set it up 17 times with different fingers and delete it and set it back up again. I've tried those things. My experience with it worked, it was fine, but it was not fast. And if your experience has been different, good for you. In my time with the 6A, my experience has been almost exactly the same as the 6 Pro. It works, it's been pretty reliable, but it is not the fastest out there. I got used to it pretty quickly. It wasn't a huge deal, but at least bear it in mind, it didn't seem to be any different from the 6 Pro to the 6A. Aside from that one hardware feature, the Tensor chip I think flexes most was with AI. I've talked about this a bit with the camera, but everything you can do with the Pro, you can pretty much do here as well. And again, $1,000 phone versus $450 phone, essentially doing the same thing. And we're talking about things like voice recognition for typing. This is still one of the most useful parts of the phone, and it perfectly demonstrates what this Tensor chip can do in real time. I can talk to my phone, have it dictate what I am saying with punctuation and accuracy. It's awesome. And that's really the importance of Google developing their own chip. In past iterations of the Pixel A series, in order to get the cost down, the processor was really one of those places that was cut. So even though Google tried their best to make the experience sort of seamless, it did always feel like there was stuff left out compared to the more powerful big brothers. That's not the case here anymore at all. It makes the 6A way easier to recommend. And there are other differences here too, things like battery size and waterproofing, differences here as well, fast charging, sort of smaller, nuanced things. And honestly, throughout this video, you might have felt like the 6A and 6 Pro are pretty similar, and that is very much because they are. Google made a really compelling package with the 6A. To me, it's so good, in fact, I think it's hard to justify the price of the 6 Pro right now. And on one hand, we know the 7 is around the corner. Google's already announced it. So buying a 6 Pro right now, at least to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you need a phone today, the 6A is so good. I think it's worth sacrificing a little bit of build quality, a little bit of camera, and a little bit of screen Aside from those things, the phones are almost identical. The 6A is a huge home run for Google. I think like most of the Pixel lines, they're probably not gonna sell millions and millions of them. But if you need a phone and you want a really good one, especially if you want to spend less than $500, I wouldn't look any farther than the Google Pixel 6A.